Hi class, in this video, we're going to talk about chapter 5 in the book. So chapter 5 is called Elasticity and Its Applications. So first, let's talk about what is elasticity. When you think about this term, think about the term elastic. What does elastic mean, right? So it's how flexible you are. So how much you can bend, that's elastic. So basically, this elasticity want to measure how flexible consumers or companies are to different factor change. So this can be income, price, or the price of other good. So I'm going to study three types of elasticity. The first one is called the price elasticity for demand. Now, what it studies, what it measures that for consumers. Now, you remember we talked about this thing called law of demand before. So law of demand says holding everything else constant. When the price goes higher, we buy less. When the price goes lower, we buy more. So when the price change, consumers will change our behavior. But the question is, how much do we change our behavior? So when let's say the price changed by 10%, do we also change our behavior by 10%? Or do we change more or less by 10%? So this measurement of how much our behavior changed or how much our quantity demand is changed, this measurement is called the price elasticity for demand. So again, it measures how flexible consumers are to different price change. So for this price elasticity for demand, the formula for it, let me write down for you. So the formula for elasticity for demand is the price elasticity for demand equals to the percentage change in quantity demanded over the percentage change in price. Okay, so and then you have two terms for this. One is called elastic demand. So elastic demand, it describes any situations where consumers really care about the price change. So when the price change by a little bit, we change our quantity demanded substantially, so by a lot. So imagine the price change by 5%, and then we buy 20% less, so more than the price change, and that will be called elastic demand. Now, inelastic demand, that means consumers, we actually don't care about the price change that much. So when the price change, we'll only change our behavior by a little bit. So we still buy the good, but just decrease our quantity demanded by very slightly. And there are four determinants for price elasticity for demand. And then remember, the key for all the determinants, it all goes back to how much choice does consumers have. So if consumers have a lot of choices, then when the price change for one good, then we can buy other good. So consumer in those cases, we're very flexible. So we call ourselves elastic. Now on the other side, if we don't have much choices, when the price goes higher, we have to buy this goods continuously. So we call those incidents consumers are very inelastic. So the four factors, the four determinants are, the first one is the availability of the substitute good. So can you buy something else? So goes back to choices. So imagine when the price for let's say Coca-Cola, if it increase, can we buy something else? Sure, right? You can buy Pepsi, Sprite, Dr. Pepper, or whatever. But so that case will be a very elastic demand. Now, let's suppose the price for bananas increase. Can we buy something else? I mean, can you buy other than banana? I don't know. I like bananas. It's hard to choose besides banana, right? So that will be a very inelastic demand. Now, the second determinant is that if this good is a necessity or luxury. Now, if it's a necessity, so goods such as milk, bread, salt, those will be necessities. So we have to buy them. When the price increase, we cannot change our behavior. I mean, guys, really imagine for like bread. So if you go to store, go to H-E-B, Walmart, you buy one loaf of bread, it will cost you what, $2, right? And then let's suppose the price increase by 50%. So tomorrow the price for loaf of bread is not $2 anymore. It goes up by 50%, so it's now $3. Do you buy less? I mean, do you don't buy bread anymore? No, you still buy the bread, right? Maybe just a little bit less. So that's called necessity. Now on the other side, if it's a luxury, has a very high elasticity. So that's an elastic demand. So imagine the price of the new iPhone it's just announced. So the iPhone 10, which will cost you about $1,000, right? So it's very expensive, and to many people that's a luxury good. So when the price for that increased by 50%, so imagine it goes from 1,000 to 1,500. So wow, that's very expensive for a phone, right? But don't worry, Apple just announced that now they have a 20-year payment plan. So if you buy the iPhone 10, it will take you 20 years to pay it off. No, just kidding. They don't have that. Just kidding. They don't have the 20-year payment plan. All right. So when the price increase, Now, if you're my wife, you buy regardless. But if you're me, that's too much. I cannot pay that much for a phone. Okay, so that to me will be a luxury good, and that has a very high elasticity. So it's an elastic demand. So consumers will care about the price change. All right, then the next factor is called, it's the definition of the market. So basically, it's how narrowly defined the good is. Now, imagine. Yes.
It's okay.
Okay. All right. So imagine if the price of blue jeans increase, can we buy something else? Sure, right? You can buy khakis, you can buy shorts, you can buy other clothing. But imagine if the price of clothing increased by 20%, can we buy something else? Not really, right? You cannot wear anything else besides clothing. So the more narrowly defined the good is, the more elastic this good is. Because the more narrowly defined, you can buy other good. You have more choices. But this good is very generally defined. We don't have any choices. So imagine the price of transportation, the price of housing, the price of clothing, the price of food. So when those very generally defined good, when those good increase in prices, we cannot change our behavior. Got to buy the same good. So those has a very low elasticity. And then last one is the change in our time horizon. So when you have a change, if this is a long-term change, then consumers tend to be more elastic. Now, if this is a short-term change, then we don't care. Okay, so let's just imagine the price of gasoline. Right now, it's about $2.50 per gallon. Imagine tomorrow, well, let's say next week. Imagine next week the price for gasoline would double, and only for next week. So for next week only, gasoline price would be $5 per gallon. Now, would you go buy a new smaller car or a hybrid car because of that? Not really, right? You might just you're probably buying the same amount of gasoline because it's only a 1 week change. But imagine if the change is for next 10 years. So suppose you know for sure for next 10 years, price for gasoline will be doubled. So $5 per gallon. Now, would you be buying a smaller car? You might be buying a smaller car, right? And then you might be even move closer to where you work. So for those long-term changes, consumers are more flexible. We're easy to change. So therefore, we're more elastic when you have a long-term change, and I'm inelastic when you have a short-term change. Okay. All right. So to find this percentage change in demand, in quantity demanded, and percentage change in price, I know that before in your other classes, you probably learned that the percentage change equals to the new number minus the old number divided by the old number, and that will give you the percentage change. Now, here's the thing. If you know which one's new, which one's old, then you can use this formula. And then eventually, guys, really, when we move on to the chapters on GDPs, inflations, we're gonna use this formula. We're gonna use the new minus old divided by old. But for elasticity, if it's just two price and quantity change, we might not know which one's new, which one's old. So we're gonna use something called a midpoint method. This midpoint method, this is the formula over here. So it's a very long formula. I'm sorry, but you gotta memorize this. So it's if when you have two price and two quantity, it's going to be Q2 minus Q1 divided by Q2 plus Q1 divided by 2, and then divide P2 minus P1 and then over P2 plus P1 divided by 2. Now, an easier way to memorize this percentage change formula is basically it's just the difference between the two good divided by the average between the two good. Okay, so again, elasticity for demand equals to the percentage change in quantity demanded over the percentage change in price. So the percentage change in quantity demanded, again, we do the difference first. So Q1 or Q2 minus Q1 divided by, and then find the average between the two. So Q2 plus Q1 divided by 2, okay? And then same thing for the percentage change in price. We're gonna do the P2 minus P1 over P2 plus P1 divided by 2, okay? So, and then for elasticity for demand, just put it together, and that's the formula. So basically, just remember, use the difference between the two variables divided by the average between two variables. And another thing that you guys need to know, this will make your life much easier. When you plug in numbers for this formula here, when you put a number into a calculator, it's best if you do it step by step. So do not put every single numbers into calculator at the same time. So I want you to do step by step. So do Q2 minus Q1 first, and then do this, and then do this, and then do the whole thing. Now the reason why that is because this formula here has, see all these parentheses over here, right? All these little parentheses. If you miss one, your formula will be wrong and the answer will be wrong. Okay, so to be more, well, how do I put this? To play safe, it's better to break down the long formula, do step by step, and then put everything into a calculator. Okay, so try that. All right. And then we have different type of demand curve. So we have something called so when you have this elastic demand, when you have elastic demand, this means your elasticity for demand is more than 1. That's elastic demand. If it's inelastic, that's when the elasticity for demand is less than 1. That's inelastic. And last one is called unielastic. That means your elasticity for demand is equal to 1. So where the percentage change in quantity demanded is equal to the percentage change in price. Well, what is that little triangle there? Okay, so 3 type of demand curve. Well, actually, we have 5 type of demand curve. I'll show you each one. And I also have something called a perfectly inelastic. It's when elasticity of demand equal to 0. And then perfectly inelastic is when elasticity for demand is equal to infinity. Why does it look like this? Let me try again. Infinity. Okay. So there. All right, so let me show you what each one looks like. So when you have a demand curve that's perfectly straight or vertical, this is when the demand curve have a 0 elasticity. So this is called a perfectly inelastic demand. Now what this means, that means for this good, see when the price change, so between 4 to 5, and see how the quantity is always 100. So this quantity never change, and then doesn't matter what the price changes. So when you have this type of good, that means consumers, we don't care about the price at all. So it doesn't matter what the price is, we buy the same amount. Now, very rarely do we have this type of demand curve, but if you think of any type of prescription drugs that we have to save our life, then that will be a perfectly inelastic demand curve. I don't know if you guys heard this before, but a couple years, I think it was last year, there was a guy on the news, and this guy was called the most hated man in America. His name is Mark Shkreli. So this guy was a CEO for a drug company, and then this drug, I think it was a drug for AIDS, and then when he becomes CEO, this company increased the drug price from only $10 per pill to $500 per pill. So the price increased by 5,000%. Now, the reason why that is because for patients who need that drug, they're pretty much perfectly inelastic. That they have to have this drug. They don't have this drug, they will die. So for those demand curve, it looks very much straight. I mean, like a vertical line. Okay, that means consumer will have to buy it. Doesn't matter what the price is. And then if your elasticity is less than 1. We call this inelastic demand. So inelastic demand, your demand curve is somewhere like a steep line. It's not perfectly vertical, but it's kind of steep, right? That means your price change by a lot, and then your quantity change only by a little bit. So for this inelastic demand curve, consumers will care about the price. Oh, we don't care about the price, but we're just gonna change our behavior by a little bit. So before, when it was perfectly inelastic, there is no change here. But now with inelastic, we change just by a little bit. Okay. And then next, unielastic is when the elasticity is equal to 1, and then this is like almost like a 45-degree line, and that's the unielastic. That means how much your price change is matched. So price change by 22% is matched by the change in quantity demanded. And then next, if your demand curve, if your elasticity is more than 1, this is called elastic demand. So your demand curve is like flat, almost flat demand curve. So now your price change by a little bit. See how much the quantity change? By a lot, right? So in this demand curve, this will be your luxury good. So consumers are very sensitive about the price change. When the price change by a little bit, we change our behavior by a lot. So that's the elastic demand. Now, last one is called a perfectly inelastic. Now, this one's also very special. Now, see how the demand curve is perfectly horizontal. So what that means when the price is $4, consumer buy this good. but when the price goes up just a little bit, let's say it goes to $5, how much does consumer buy? Nothing, right? There's no demand here. So for this type of demand curve, that means consumers, we're perfectly sensitive about the price change. You change the price by a little bit, we buy from somebody else. We don't buy anything from you anymore. So that's a perfectly elastic demand curve. And then remember chapter 4, we talk about the price of printer papers. So that will be a perfectly elastic demand curve, because when the price for one brand of printer paper increase by a little bit, we buy other brand. So in that market, there's a perfectly elastic demand. Okay. All right. So total revenue. Now, guys, you make sure you know the difference between total revenue and profit. So total revenue is not profit. Okay. So profit is how much money you keep. Total revenue is how much money you're collecting from customers. So the easy way to find it, just use your price times quantity. That's your total revenue. Now, between price and quantity, according to law of demand, they go in opposite directions. So when you try to maximize your total revenue, should you increase your price or should you decrease your price? Now, here's the thing. So total revenue is price times quantity. Now, remember, they go in opposite directions, right? So if I increase my price, quantity goes down according to law of demand. So when that happens, when you use the higher price times the lower quantity, how does my total revenue change? So if I want to increase my total revenue, should I increase my price or should I decrease my price? So this is how you find it. When you have a price change, when you have a price increase, if the demand is inelastic, total revenue will increase. Now, this is the reason why. So imagine we're talking about this necessity market. So market for milk. The consumers, we have to buy milk. Hey, what's up?
No,
Did you change it?
so they said maybe, but the thing
Maybe?
is, yeah, you have to go to the department chair and
Okay.
ask for part.
Okay.
You have to do that?
I have to do it or you have to do it?
Oh, you have to do it. I said if I could do it, no, you're your instructor, and I say, is there anything I could do? They said, no, you have to fill out a form from your department chair.
Okay. I can go ask. I can go ask. So you want to change from Tuesday to Thursday?
Yeah, do this.
Okay. All right. I'll go ask for it. Okay. I'll let you know. But are you coming tonight or coming next week?
Tonight.
Tonight? That's fine. Okay. I'll see you tonight. All right. Okay, guys, sorry about that. I'm in the classroom, so I have interruptions all the time. All right, let's go back to this. So, so when where was I? Oh, okay. So imagine this market for milk, right? So when the price increase, because milk is a necessity, which is inelastic, then we have to buy it regardless, right? So in that case, your price increased by a lot, quantity decreased by a little bit, then put it together, your total revenue will increase, okay? And then vice versa, if you have a very elastic good, that means we care about the price change. So when the price change, we change our behavior. So when that happens, imagine the price increase for price just by a little bit, and then quantity goes down by a lot. You put it together, total revenue goes down, okay? So you got to know if the demand is inelastic or elastic to determine what is the effect of price change on the total revenues. So we have a summary page here. All right, here we go. So this is a summary page. So when the demand is inelastic, so elasticity less than 1, total revenue and price will move in the same direction. So when the price increase, total revenue also increase. Now, if your demand is elastic, total revenue and the price will move in opposite directions. So price increase, total revenue decrease. And the last one, when the demand is unilastic, total revenue will remain constant regardless what the price change is. Let me put it another way. So when the demand is inelastic, your total revenue is maximized. Okay, so that means if you increase your price, you have a lower total revenue. If you decrease your price, you have a lower total revenue. So when the demand is inelastic, total revenue is maximized. All right. Okay, so linear demand curve. Now, just because you have a demand curve for a good doesn't mean that the elasticity is always constant. It really depends on where you are on the demand curve. So let me show you a graph like this. When the price is very low, your elasticity is more than 1. So this side will be inelastic demand. Now, however, if your price is very high, demand over here will be very elastic. So consumer actually changes by a lot. And then somewhere in the middle, you're gonna have this elastic. Now, let me tell you why that is. So imagine that this good is very, very expensive. So imagine, again, this iPhone again. So this iPhone costs you $1,000, so it's very expensive. Now, that basically gives consumers more incentive to look for other good, right? Because they're with all the high prices, we're pushing consumers away to find other alternatives. So that way, consumers are more flexible. That we tend to be more responsive when price change. Now, however, imagine the price is very, very cheap. So imagine the iPhone, the price is not $1,000, the iPhone price is priced at $100. Well, very, very cheap, right? So consumers, we don't have the incentive to buy other good. I mean, why even buy the good if the iPhone is very cheap? Just buy the iPhone continuously, right? So when the price is very low, consumers are very inelastic. Okay, so remember, on the same demand curve, the top first portion demand curve is elastic, and the bottom portion demand curve is inelastic. And somewhere in the middle, you have this inelastic. All right, so the next, well, guys, since we have this table here, let's work out a one elasticity problem. That way, you have some idea how to plug in the numbers. Okay, let's do this two over here. So between $7 and $6, and quantity is 0 and 2. So remember, the price elasticity for demand equals to the percentage change in quantity over the percentage change in price. So to find the percentage change in quantity, now we have two quantity here, 0 and 2. It doesn't matter which one comes first, but remember they're consistent. Okay, so that means if 2 is your first quantity, that means 6 must be your first price. So let's suppose, well, let's do it reverse. So let's suppose this was the first point. Okay, and this is your second point. So quantity 1 will be 0, quantity 2 will be 2. So to find the percentage change in quantity, you're going to use the Q2 minus Q1, so 2 minus 0, over Q2 plus Q1, so 2 plus 0, and then divided by 2. Okay, so let's see what this is. So 2 minus 0, again, that's 2. 2 plus 0 is 2. 2 divided by 2 is 1. So 2 over 1, this gives you 2. And then to find the percentage, let me write it over here. So percentage change in price, we're going to have 6 and 7 here. So P2 minus P1, so 6 minus 7, over P2 plus P1, so 6 plus 7, divided by 2. So this would be minus -1 divided by 6 plus 1, that's 13. 13 divided by 2 is 6.5. Okay. And then let's do our elasticity for demand. So we're going to have 2 divided by 1 over 6.5, -1. Now, one more thing, guys, for the percentage, for the elasticity for demand, only for this one, when you finish, take an absolute value, just always positive, okay? I'm going to take an absolute value here. So 2 divided by 1 over 6.5, if you put in this calculator, this should be 13, okay? So that's the answer over here. Now, 13, this is more than 1, therefore it's called elastic. All right, guys. So don't forget to take an absolute value. And remember, this is only true for the price elasticity for demand. I'm going to show you 2 more elasticities. For those, do not take absolute value, but only for the price elasticity for demand, you can take an absolute value. All right, now, the next one is called the income elasticity for demand. So this measures how much does our quantity demanded change when the income level change. Now, the formula for it is your, so the income elasticity for demand, this is your percentage change in quantity demanded over the percentage change in income. So income change, how much does the quantity demand change? Excuse me. All right. Now for this one, we care about the signage, so do not take absolute value. If your income elasticity, so if your income elasticity is positive, then this is a normal good. Now remember, normal good we talked about in chapter 4. That when this depends on income. So if income goes up, you buy more of the good. That's a normal good. Now for normal good, as long as your income elasticity is positive, we call this a normal good. And then further, if you look at the actual numbers, so if your income elasticity is between 0 and 1, then this is a necessity. And then if your income elasticity is more than 1, then this is a luxury good. Now, on the other side, if your income elasticity is less than 0, so it's negative, we call that inferior good. Remember, inferior good from chapter 4, it says that when the income goes higher, we buy less of this good. That's an inferior good. Okay. And then next one is called a cross price elasticity. Now, what that measures the percent. Also, cross price elasticity is your percentage change in quantity demanded of one good A divided by the percentage change in the price of good B. So basically, we're comparing two good. So when the price for B change, how much would this change the quantity demanded for A? Now, this will tell you if the good is either if the goods are either substitutes or complements. So if your cross price elasticity is positive, then these two goods are a substitute. That means you buy one, you don't buy the other one. If the cross price elasticity is negative, that means these two goods are complements. That means you buy both together. So when the price for B increase, that means you're going to buy less of B. At the same time, you buy less of A. So that's a complement, and that will have a negative cross price elasticity. All right. Now we're going to skip this elasticity for supply because it's pretty much same thing as price elasticity for demand. I'm going to skip that, and also this won't be on your test either. Okay. I think that's it for this chapter. All right, guys. So that's it for chapter 5. If you have any questions, feel free to email me. And then remember, I'm always here to help. All right, guys. Good luck, and I will see you for chapter 6.